Hello, welcome to the first year BHM course of Guru Nanak Institute of Technology, Kolkata. I'm Dr. Indrajit Bose and I shall be your course coordinator for this session. This paper is entitled Business Communication and the paper code is BHM N102. In the course of this paper, we have been taking a look at the various forms and modes of written and spoken communication in the workplace, or in other words, in your sphere of work at the sector of the private or public healthcare, in a large hospital, or maybe in some other healthcare facility. Now, this one is the last lecture, lecture 13 in the series from module 2, and it is based on vocabulary development. I think all of you are aware that once you have passed out of this course, you will be joining the industry, and there you will be required to interact with other people like clients, customers, patients, service providers, vendors of various sorts, and you will be doing business with them, you will be dealing with administrative needs with them, and you will have various exchanges, both written and spoken. Now, in the course of your workplace interaction, obviously, as a professional, you will be using professional vocabulary too. So, this would mean that you will be conversant with both business terms or business jargon, as well as the everyday workplace jargon that is in place in the corporate world nowadays, as well as the medical terms and expressions which are commonly used in the healthcare sector. So, we shall be taking a look at both general vocabulary and also some specialized vocabulary which you need to be conversant with in your daily life, by which I mean your workplace interactions. Now, obviously, it is a question of the context and the diversity of expressions. Let us say that you are working in a large public sector hospital in Mumbai. So the vocabulary and expressions that you use over there, obviously, they are standardized because medical terminology is fairly standard in terms of international practices. But there may be various expressions which are commonly used by Indian people living in Mumbai, which you will find that people tend to use more over there. After some time, let us suppose that you relocate to the United Arab Emirates in a large hospital over there. Now, naturally, you will find that there are many people belonging to other nationalities working over there. So there may be people from some European countries who are working over there. So they will also be speaking in English, but you will find that there is a kind of difference between the words and expressions, many of them used by these people compared to your colleagues in India. So medical terms and expressions or business terms, of course, are common. But the context often plays a very important role in creating certain localized variations in the vocabulary. So we shall be looking at a way in which words can be learned in context, and we shall take a look at some medical terms, expressions, and business terms. We shall also take a look at the ways of increasing vocabulary power and how the vocabulary of the professional can be enriched. So our informing context, of course, is always going to be there of the healthcare sector. So whatever vocabulary we are talking about, or whatever vocabulary in context we are talking about as imbibed by the healthcare professional, ultimately we must not forget that the application of all these kinds of learning lies basically in the healthcare sector. So I shall be giving you certain contextualized examples or I shall refer to certain examples which again lead to an application of this sort of vocabulary in your particular sector, that is in health, right? So let us start and continue our journey with the exploration of many different kinds of words and their meanings. Now, the corpus of English words in use is extremely vast and varied. If you look at the Oxford English corpus, there are more than 5,000 words which are used in different contexts and they have varied meanings. How do we ever learn so many different words and expressions? Do you know how many words you know in English? Probably you don't. But it is possible to make an estimation of the word count that you possess a knowledge of. So, do you know? Maybe many people have an average 1,500 words, 5,000 words, or over 10,000 words. So, the knowledge that they have may be highly complex or varied. So, you possibly don't know how many words and expressions you really know. And how do we grasp different words or get to know them at all in any case, because the number is so vast? Well, one of the convenient things we can do is to divide vocabulary into different segments depending on areas of interest or specialization, or we can say there are different sectors or areas into which we can divide the words that are commonly used. Now, we might say that there is a certain basic vocabulary of use. These are everyday words and expressions which crop up in our ordinary conversations or our ordinary usage. This is not specifically related to workplace use of English, but it can relate to our everyday use, and it also pertains to many other sectors apart from the workplace, like health, public welfare, daily activities, sports, and so on. Now, this basic vocabulary includes phenomena like the weather, parts of the body, and basic things like colors and numbers. Now, obviously, you are conversant with most of these because you have possibly studied, or when you began your study of the English language, you started your study with many of these. However, there may be certain terms and expressions which you are not familiar with, for example, with reference to the weather. Okay. Now, if there are any terms with which you are not familiar, you can make yourself familiar so as to fill in your stock of words as far as these basic vocabulary items are concerned. Now, apart from these, we can also say that there is a vocabulary of basic objects of daily use. Now, this would include objects involved in the household, transport, food and drink, shops and merchandise, travel, and other sectors like this. Now, this is the basic vocabulary. Now, if this is the basic vocabulary used, there is also the vocabulary of a more specialized kind, or we can say in professional or workplace contexts and situations. Now, this would include, for example, the vocabulary used in sectors like banking, healthcare, trade and commerce, religion, art and culture. Now, it's not possible for us at this stage to exhaustively list all the vocabulary terms that we find that relate to all these sectors. But we can dip, we can sip, we can browse, and we can take a look at certain listings of important vocabulary terms which occur in our knowledge and identification of all these sectors. Now, apart from this, there are also other types of words and expressions which crop up from time to time, mostly in everyday English usage. So we also have to take a look at these, like phrasal verbs, idioms, and collocations. So the scope of learning vocabulary or taking stock of vocabulary is extremely vast and wide. It is almost like the infinite sky. Okay? It is full of infinite space. You can travel around it, you can go around it, but still you will never finish. So the number of words that we can count in, of course, words are numbered. It's not like the clouds in the sky, which we cannot count. But nevertheless, the words are extremely large in numbers and almost infinite, we can say. So how many of these words in the different areas you can make a list of? And this also will vary. And again, it will vary from person to person. Now we must take a look at all these segments or sectors that I have talked about, or rather categorizations, like basic words and expressions, vocabulary from different specialized sectors of learning, and also other types of vocabulary like phrasal verbs, idioms, and collocations. Let us begin this journey. Now, the basic vocabulary of weather, associated words, this is very common. This is common knowledge. Like when we are in school, for example, and start learning English, we learn first about the seasons: winter, summer, autumn, and spring. These are the seasons, of course, in Europe, but in India, we also have the monsoons. And various adjectives to describe the weather, like sunny, rainy, windy, dry, calm, foggy, misty, or stormy. They are also commonly used. Now, various natural phenomena also have their names, like the rain, fog, mist, sleet, hail, and snow. Now, what is a hailstorm, for example? So when you have storms which drop hard, round icicles. So there's upper air circulation. So the cold air from the top comes in, and as a result, these hailstones shower down with the rain, and we get a hailstorm. So they are very frequent in India during the monsoon. Uh, Sleet, again, is rain mixed with snow. So if you don't know, you find out what exactly are the connotations of these terms. Now, storms themselves, as destructive natural phenomena, have got different types of names and varied kinds of intensity. There's a blizzard, snowstorm, a thunderstorm, storm accompanied by thunder and lightning, a typhoon, a storm at sea, a cyclone, a tremendous storm, a tsunami, it's an earthquake at sea, a tempest, a terrible storm, and a dust storm, which takes place in deserts or dry areas. Other types of natural disasters include floods, flash floods. Again, flash floods are floods which appear and as suddenly they disappear. Droughts, again, these are common in African countries and in India. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. Now, the objects in the sky, astral objects, include the sun, moon, stars, meteors, planets, meteorites, satellites, orbit, and also terms like space and galaxy. So this is something extremely basic. I think we are all aware of these, and this basic vocabulary leaves really nothing for us that is anything new. Now, also we have colors, numbers, and body parts. Now, the basic colors include red, blue, green, and yellow, and we have other colors like the secondary colors: pink, brown, black, orange, white, grey, maroon, mauve, violet. Then in numbers we have both cardinal and ordinal numbers. The body parts: head, hair, eyebrows, lips, nose, cheeks, tongue, eyelashes, nostrils, teeth, forehead, chin, jaw, neck, arms, hands, fingers, nails, elbow, chest, stomach, legs, thighs, toes, ankles, and feet, of course. Now, obviously, let me give you an example of this. For example, the color words. Now, often when you are working in a large hospital, you have to describe objects and people. So the color words or expressions will often come in useful over there. Like, there is buff-colored paper on envelopes, which is used for diagnostic tests. So you have to describe it. Or what is the uniform that is given out to health workers in your hospital? So it is beige with red checks on the apron and green with white checks on another apron. So again, you find that your knowledge of the vocabulary or items of the color vocabulary is coming useful over there. Then the body parts, again, there may be necessities for different kinds of tests with the body parts or diagnostic tests. So again, you have to know what these parts are and what kind of corresponding test is involved. Now, there is a funny joke that I would like to share with you. A doctor in my acquaintance many years ago wrote a prescription for a baby and asked the baby's parents to dose the child with nasal spray because the child was suffering from a blocked nose. So the doctor wrote in the prescription that the nasal spray was to be given in both noses. Now, the funny part of that is that obviously the child had one nose. So what the doctor was trying to say was that the spray should be given in both the nostrils and not both noses. Okay, but he wrote noses, so that was an error. So again, this is basic vocabulary with which we are all of us familiar, but again, it comes in useful in our everyday usage, often in the workplace context, particularly when we are dealing with people and patients, it comes in useful. Okay, let's carry on. Okay, now from the physical parts of the body, we come to objects in daily use again, which are fairly common, like in food and drink. Now, food and drink are certain basic necessities. So if you are in some context where you have to express your need and you have to express yourselves regarding what food item or item of drink you would like to take, then you need to be very, very clear about that. Now, obviously, these food and drink items can be divided into different categories. So there are milk and dairy products like cheese, butter, cream, yogurt, and buttermilk. Again, meat products like ham, mutton, beef, pork, venison, chicken. But in India, of course, things like ham and often beef and pork may not be consumed. Vegetables would include potato, beans, tomatoes, lettuce, onions, celery, cabbage, cauliflower, peas, like all the winter vegetables that are there. Again, capsicum, bell pepper, gourd, squash, and cucumber. So all the vegetables of the season. Again, in fruits, we have apples, pears, plums, oranges, bananas, strawberries, raspberries, apricots, cherries, peaches, pomegranates, dates, and raisins. So a wide diversity of fruits also. And in nuts, we have coconut, walnut, groundnut, areca nut, hazelnut, cashew nut, and so on. So different kinds of nuts are also there. Then we have cooking and food, or words related to cooking and food, we have drinks and beverages. Now, among common drinks are wine, water, beer, whiskey, soda, lemonade, orangeade, juice, and malt. Now, the dishes would, of course, include soup, stew, curry, salad. In dessert, we have ice cream, custard, pie, trifle, tart, and pudding. What is a pie? It is often some fruit which is baked in the form of a pie with a crust outside. Tart, again, it is made of flour, it is baked, like for example, jam tarts. Pudding also is a sweet dish or dessert. Types of bread and cakes, we have loaf, garlic bread, bun, bagel, croissant, roll, plum cake. So all these are different types of bread. Plum cake, of course, is a type of cake. Fruit cake, chocolate cake, and pastry. So there are many different types of bread and cakes, all of which are bakery products. Then there are different cooking terms and expressions also, which are common for processes like bake, boil, roast, fry, steam, stew, grill, chop, and cut and grind. Utensils like the skillet, the frying pan, saucepan, pot, tureen, crock, spoon, knife, fork, ladle, teapot, coffee pot, electric kettle. So again, these are very, very common. Then we have the devices like the oven, stove, grill, microwave, toaster, pressure cooker, and so on. Now we shall take a look at another sector or segment, that is travel and transport. Before we look at travel and transport, I would like to give an example of the food, a vocabulary related to food and drink. Now let us suppose that you have the responsibility of checking the diet charts made by dietitians for certain patients in the female ward. Now let us say that one of the women patients, Mrs. Mathur over there, is somebody who suffers from high diabetes. So she is forbidden to take sweets in any form. Now, you find on looking at the diet charts given by the dietitian that Mrs. Mathur has been given a diet chart in which there are some items which contain sugar, and that she is given among desserts, custard and cake as desserts, and ice cream twice a week. Now, obviously, your knowledge and understanding of general dietary practices would point out the fact that for a high diabetic like Mrs. Mathur, this kind of diet is quite dangerous. So you have to remedy that. So your knowledge of cooking and the dietary terms and expressions is going to come in of practical use very soon. Okay, now let us now go on to the travel and transport, the vocabulary related to that. Of course, we will have different kinds of vehicles in transport like the car, bus, train, aeroplane, auto, shuttle, taxi, cab, double-decker bus, truck, and so on. Now, sometimes the term truck is used, sometimes the word lorry is used. Now, one of them is American, that is the truck, the other one is British. So we use them quite interchangeably, but it is preferable to stick to one instead of saying lorry one time and truck another time. There are associated terms like ale, the ale seat in aeroplane, for example, coach, vestibule, compartment, wagon, rig, and so on. Now we often talk about the metro railway rigs, okay, or standing in the vestibule of the compartment. Okay, so these are terms which are used, and then we have various terms related with people who are traveling, like driver, conductor, the conductor of a bus or of a train or tram, for example, traveler, the person who travels, tourist, and passenger. Now you might ask me, what is the difference between a traveler and a tourist? when a tourist is going around looking at certain things like ancient monuments, museums, and so on. Whereas a traveler is simply traveling to get the feel of the travel and or to get new experience of travel. Now, the people in travel are the tourist, the traveler, the sightseer, the backpacker, and the guide. Places and associated terms include a resort, hotel, lodge, homestay, motel, lounge, cottage, spa, map, luggage, restaurant, takeaway, drive-in, and club. Now, what is a motel? For example, it is a hotel or a place to stay which allows provision for parking your car. So motels are very common in the USA. So all these terms are used of travel and transport. Now, what comes next? Let us explore and see. Now we have different kinds of shops and merchandise. So we have places like shopping malls, supermarkets, plazas, stores, and boulevards, all of which imply that there is a space for shopping. Then people, we have shoppers, those who do the shopping, salespersons, assistants, and so on. Now, among the items and merchandise, we have the shopper's trolley or basket, the goods which are bought, the packets, parcels, sachets, pouches, these are all the containers, cartons, often they might be made of cardboard, packages, racks, display cabinets, outlets, offers, and freebies. So there are a lot of terms which are very commonly used, particularly with the advancement of the shopping malls. All these terms have become very popular. Then we have different types of shops also. Again, this depends upon specializations of people and different professions. So we have a bakery, a butcher's shop selling meat, a grocer's shop, haberdashery selling undergarments, a garment store, a general store, and hardware. So there are many other kinds of shops, but they will also come into one or two of these categories. Okay. Next, we have specialized vocabulary, like in healthcare, for example. Now, this is something again that we are working towards. Now, what sort of words and expressions are common in healthcare? Like, for example, among the places we have hospitals, nursing homes, hospices, and caregivers. Now, the people involved, doctors of various specializations, nurses, healthcare workers, paramedics, medical technicians, and so on. So these are all the wide variety. It's a sampling of the wide variety of people who are a part of our exploration into different kinds of terms used in healthcare. Now, among the services, we have wide and varied kinds of services like diagnostics, reception, OPD, surgery, emergency surgery or emergency, telemedicine, which is given over phone calls, pharmacy, where medicines, injections, and drugs are sold, and pathology, which performs certain tests. Okay, telemedicine is very much an emerging sector, so we have to call a certain number and you get through to the doctor, so some expert medical advice can be given to you. Now, among equipment, medical equipment and items, we have scan machine, X-ray, Doppler, bandage, liniment, lotion, gauze, plaster, adhesive, tape, anesthetic, and stretcher and life support. So again, these are terms which are commonly known. So I really don't think I have to explain over there. So you will be using these terms in a day-to-day basis in your workplace. We also have the utilities like help desk. Often you will have to man this. A doctor on call, check-in and check-out, monitoring and house call. Again, these are certain basic terms in healthcare. For example, here we see one sample of different types of doctors or medical practitioners uh, who have different names, like a surgeon. Who is a surgeon? One who performs surgery. A paramedic, somebody who offers support services. A psychologist, somebody who does a psychological assessment. A nurse is somebody who does all kinds of work. Again, an ENT doctor is a specialist on ear, nose, throat. Again, a pharmacist is somebody who is selling medicines in a pharmacy. A consulting doctor may be a general doctor, but he has or she has to be consulted. A duty doctor means when the doctor is available during certain hours of the day in a certain chamber or clinic or attached to a hospital. A family doctor, somebody who treats patients belonging to a particular family, maybe for generations. A veterinarian is a doctor who looks after animals, birds, and other pets. And a dentist is a doctor who takes care of your teeth and gums and such other needs or dental care. So these are some of the terms with which we are familiar in our study of different medical terms and expressions or the vocabulary related to business as far as the medical sector is concerned. Now, we also have specialized vocabulary related to business, and the number of terms related to business is actually very large and diversified. So we have things like trade, venture, enterprise, profit, startup. By startup, we mean a new business or new entrepreneurial venture. Life and capital investment, okay, investing money in proceeds. Okay, so certain large investments, maybe for raising the capital required for industry, commerce or trade, trends or certain traits or features, break even, so which is achieved after a couple of years, fixed costs, distribution network, again, this is a product distribution network, disinvestment, this is also done sometimes, a portfolio or a package or parcel, clause, certain conditions, conclave, again, it's a meeting, the USP, that is the selling point, your unique selling point, a business plan, or maybe you can say a business directive, or you can say some new sort of project. Stakeholders, people who have a say in how things turn out. Touch base, that is, you touch the bottom. And also various other terms like HR or human relations, public relations. Again, these are very commonly used in the workplace. Again, cold call, or a term used about a selling strategy to a customer who has earlier not been approached. Again, often this is not successful. Now, we also have terms like stakeholders, touch base, leverage, vertical, best practice, and core competency. Now, among the people who are there, we have executives, business people, research analysts, and so on. Now, even the meals that people have in the business sector have got different names, like A breakfast is no longer just a breakfast, it's a power breakfast. Then the lunch that we have is a business lunch or a business dinner. Now, many common expressions are used like thinking outside the box, blue sky drinking, on the same page, which means you come with a similar attitude. A price point, it's a fancy term for pricing. End of play, that is the end of the working day. A scalable, so that is something which can be adjusted as per need. So these are certain specialized terms which are related to business and trade and commerce. Now, from here, we move on to these other kinds of expressions like idioms, for example. So an idiom is a word or a phrase which has a figurative meaning where the figurative meaning is different from the real meaning. Now, it serves to amplify and alert us to multiple meanings. For example, like phrases like a blake in disguise, a blessing in disguise, I beg your pardon, something which seems bad but turns out to be good, or break a leg, a way to wish an actor or performer good luck, or be under the weather, which refers to mildly feeling sick like suffering from a common cold. Now, often you will find these idioms and expressions are used in everyday conversation and exchanges. Now, they frequently occur and they are used in many different contexts. For example, when you are talking to your patient, or maybe you are talking about the welfare of the patient, and you ask how that person feels himself or herself, and he or she replies that they are feeling under the weather. So then you will not be able to understand what is the meaning of this expression if you are not aware about the use of the idiom. Or uh, the doctor tells you that he wishes that you break a leg. So that's not really that you are breaking a leg, but that you have good luck in your medical exam. Uh, so we need these terms and expressions and often use them with our colleagues, with supervisors, with patients, and so on. Actually, they often help in bonding by tying people in unique and personal ways. You see, the general terms and expressions are fairly common in their usage, so they are average. But idioms would tend to set you in a class apart. So you have a shareable bond with somebody else if you and that person both have this knowledge about idioms. So it sets you apart, kind of, and gives you a separate class identity. So knowledge of English idioms is very, very useful. There are also other things like phrasal verbs, for example. Now, a phrasal verb is basically a combination of a verb, and adverbial particle, or a preposition. For example, like take off. Now, phrasal verbs can be intransitive, that is not having an object, like we broke up 2 years ago, or they set off early to miss the traffic, or to he pulled up outside the cottage. They can also be transitive, like they can have an object. The police were called to break up the fight. When the door is opened, it sets off an alarm, and they pulled the house down and redeveloped the site. So we can have these phrasal verbs both as transitive and intransitive. So here are certain common phrasal verbs like come across, to find somebody, usually by accident, to come along, to accompany, come apart, that is break or separate, come on, like progress or to develop, come through, to survive, come over, like affect, cut down, like being brought down by cutting, cut off, stop providing funds to someone, like this, for example, or crack up, like laugh heartily. We also have other terms like collocations. So they are a group of words which are habitually juxtaposed. Now, the usefulness of using collocations is that our language will be more natural and more easily understood if we use them, and they have an alternative, they add an alternative and richer ways of expressing ourselves. Now, there are different types of collocations, like a combination of adverb and adjective, for example, completely satisfied, an adjective and a noun, like excruciating pain, noun together with another noun, like surge of anger, noun with a verb, like lions roar, noun and a verb, like commit suicide, a verb and the expression with preposition, like burst into tears, and verb and an adverb, like wave frantically. So there are different kinds of combinations which are possible. And here are some examples of collocations, like a cause of something, fear of, credit for, cure for, demand for, and so on and so forth. Again, many with, again, some with to, like access to, addiction to. With we have deal with, dealings with, difficulty with, involvement with, and so on. Now, how to bring about a progressive enrichment of your vocabulary, how to get a more enriched vocabulary, which is a sign of greater professional competence. Some of the ways of increasing our stock of words would be to keep a vocabulary notebook and to note down new words and expressions and their meanings when we come across them, to maintain word blogs and keep adding words over there. We write the blog, to keep illustrated dictionaries or picture dictionaries where the pictures related to words are given and the pictures will stick in our mind so that we don't forget the meaning of the words. Again, use dictionaries with self-study CD-ROMs to come across words and also to check their pronunciations, which are given on the CD-ROM. Also, we have words in context, like seen in the context of films, documentaries, sports, and wildlife. So whatever your preference, you can take your pick and you will use and come across more new words. Also, reading is a great source of new words, reading in newspapers, books, and journals. Applying words in real life situations and contexts, again, this is useful. For example, if you are helping an accident victim in emergency, you will be using various types of these words and expressions, even specialized terms. For a professional, we need general words, also subject-specific words, for example, those related to business or healthcare. And we need a lot of vocabulary in context. Now, the professional needs to be careful about using words because misuse can lead to misunderstandings. Varied use adds to the energy and power of the language, and also the use varies with time because certain things become outdated with time. The words keep coming in also through the internet, through digital media, and they make communication more simple as well as more complex. So I hope I've been able to indicate to you some of the complexity that relates to the varied use of words, both general and specialized, in the workplace context. So I hope that you will get to learn more and more English words and their meanings, and that your vocabulary will be much more enriched as time passes. So this brings us to the end of the lecture series, and I would like to end by thanking you for your patience.